Okay. Hey, everyone. I hope that you can all hear me and that you're joining and dialing in today from Lithuania. I heard that you are going into a new lockdown today. So I'm really glad for the people that make the time to speak with me today about inbound customer acquisition. So I'm just gonna kick off and feel free, this is essentially your time. So feel free to comment in Facebook to see whether I can answer your questions live, or maybe we take them offline if they are very in depth. But really, it's your time and use it wisely because I'm really here for you today. We are going to speak about inbound marketing. So I'm from Hubspot. Inbound marketing is what we do, among other things also, and we are going to dive deeper into that today. So just to introduce myself quickly, because I haven't met you in person just yet. And this is me. So I'm taking care of the HubSpot for Startups and HubSpot for Entrepreneurs programs in the Eastern European region, but also in the DACH region and the Benelux region. I'm based in Berlin. We have an office of we actually usually have an office. We still have it, but we're not based there at the moment. So we have about 120, 130 people working here. And what I'm responsible for is working together with partners, meaning VCs, incubators, accelerators, all partners that try to help startups grow. And what we do is, of course, help them grow their startups. So we do that in several different ways, and education such as this is one of the ways in which we try to help startups grow better. So we do that on education, on the go-to-market strategies. So everything around sales, marketing, and services. So if you have questions, today or maybe another day, feel free to reach out to me. So a little bit more about me. I know that you haven't been joining this session to learn a lot about myself, but I just want to share a bit on my credibility on speaking about the subject. I'm not a trained trainer. Just want to always give that as a disclaimer. I share with you my knowledge that I have from my experience working in startups and working with startups. So here on the left-hand side is a logo of my first startup that I built as part of my university program at the time. It wasn't a very great success. So I soon realized, okay, I need to do something else. I moved to Berlin, joined Rocket Internet, and set up a peer-to-peer lending platform for the Benelux market, which was really exciting. Then joined Dropbox to work in their direct sales team, and later on building up indirect for the Benelux market as well. So channel sales, indirect channel sales, which is a really interesting angle to B2B selling as well. And then joined HelloFresh to set up their B2B product, which is called HelloFreshGO. And I was the marketing lead there. And over a year and a half, I joined HubSpot to help you guys. So that's just a bit about me, but then you also know where my expertise lies and where it might not lie. So that's good to know. So what are we talking about today? Many entrepreneurs think marketing is a necessary evil. And we can all be very honest about this, right? It is daunting to not only work on building the best product or service on the market, but then also start thinking about how am I going to monetize it? How am I going to bring it to the market at the right moment in the right way? So let's start with a little bit of debugging why it is that entrepreneurs try to avoid marketing. Of course, not talking about you, but just entrepreneurs in general, right? So this is something that I really hear very often. I'm building something that people will love. And entrepreneurs tend to be super passionate about their baby, right? They should be. It is something that you put your life and soul into. But spending 99% of your time on building the best product on the market isn't probably going to make you successful. Sometimes maybe it does, but most of the times it's a combination of a really good service and product together with that go-to-market strategy, right? And still you will need to find those people who will love your product, or those people who will love your product will need to find you. And marketing and inbound marketing and sales will enable you to find these people. Stop worrying about somebody stealing your idea. This is really important. You should really start early on talking with your buyer personas. We will talk about this more later on, about your target group, to understand really how their buying process, what their buying process is looking like, and how you can tap into that in the best way possible. I'm not ready is also an often heard comment, and something that, you know, a CRM system, marketing, sales activities might be something for down the road. I'm not saying that it's really like the first thing you need to do after creating your company entity, but you really need to start thinking about your go-to-market strategy as early on as possible, because it needs to be an integrated thing from the get-go. Also, outsourcing, it's an often asked question about whether it is a good idea to hire externals to do the go-to-market for you. And even though I think that there's definitely a place and time for external people to help you, especially if it's on particular expertise, let's say SEO or other particular expertise, it is really important that it is taken care of by the core team as well. So don't just rely on externals to do this for you. So sorry, let's go back. The old versus the new playbook. So I want to talk a little bit about the old and new playbook. And if you do not know what I mean with old versus new, it's about inbound versus outbound. And it's not really fair to say it's old versus new, because I think there is a time and place for a combination of both. But it is true that outbound, or just relying on outbound, was the old playbook, right? It's a long time ago, actually, that we got used to buying processes online, but especially in B2B purchases, you know, it took businesses a longer time to adjust to an online buying process. And that's not just the checkout of actually purchasing something, that is the whole journey up until that moment, right? So the thing that changed the most are these three things. More things change, but buyers are in control. And that's the most important thing why you should start thinking about inbound marketing for your startup. First of all, buyers can find information everywhere. They can find information everywhere and whenever they want. It's on demand. Even if they wake up at night at 2 a.m. and they think, I want to know it now, they can do so. They don't need to rely on people of your organization to provide them with the information. They can go to forums, they can go to social media, they can go to other content places, right? So they really engage with you on their own terms. They also have gotten a lot better at blocking out interruptive marketing and sales techniques. So if you look at the European landscape, GDPR is, of course, a big topic, and it's not even possible to actually outbound reach out to someone that hasn't given his or her consent to do so. So that's very important things that you need to think about, how you are then going to pop up on their radar, right, if you're not allowed to do so. And buyers have a very high expectation of that buying experience. If you have a competitive, a unique, let's say, service or product on the market, it's difficult to keep that unique competitive advantage, because other companies, it's not that difficult to keep up with you as a product if it's a particular feature or something like that, unless it's patent. But, you know, talking about the average business model, what is going to make you unique is that really good product and service with the best buying experience for customers. So that is really the expectation also that buyers have these days. Aside from these three things on the buyer end, it's also important to think about budget, right? Because we are startups, we are low in budget, we are resourceful, but we don't have big dollars, euros. I actually don't really know the currency of Lithuania. I should look that up, to just throw around, right? And outbound is very expensive, really very expensive. So if you've raised funding, that's really great. That's amazing. But you probably don't want to be just spending it on something that is not going to generate value for you in the long term, or is going to continue creating value over a longer point of time. So buying your way through it has particular problems. And I'm then talking about ads, right? I mean, I think ads is really great asset. Like it's definitely something that you might want to try out. And especially if you have budget, it's really nice. However, it's rented attention, right? So what do I mean with that? Once you stop paying the rent, AKA just stop paying the ad spend, the attention is going away, right? The traffic that you're gaining from these ads is just disappearing. So you need to think about that. You might want to utilize an ad strategy, but you need to support it with something that is low cost, that might not have immediate impact, but is going to create long-term value over a long time, and that you're going to, get the I want to play around with a Dutch saying, which does not make any sense in English, but that you're going to take the advantage of over a longer term of time. That's what I want to say. So ads are temporary. I think we got that point. And then there's one last issue with just looking at outbound, right? Nobody, even in Corona times where we are in lockdown, thinks this, like, oh my God, I hope that today I'm going to get a spammy email or a cold call. It's just not a nice buying experience. It's just really not nice to wake up in the morning and think that. So that's probably also not what's going to happen, right? People do not like it, they hate it, and it's not going to shine nicely on your brand if you're doing this. So, okay, fine. You're probably saying, Kaythlin, I've now heard enough about what I shouldn't be doing. What should I actually be doing? Let's talk about that. Very good question and good point. So the new playbook, that inbound playbook that we have talking about, which should resolve all our problems, is not a magic bullet, right? It requires a lot of work and a lot of resources, but it is a better way. So inbound acquisition, or the art of making people excited. That's how I kind of call it, because it is that way, right? I mean, it's not only about making people excited, but it's offering them value that they get excited about and that they genuinely want to interact with your brand and your company. And that's, at the end of the day, also a very natural way of interacting with someone and making a buying experience. It's much more fun also as a team, as a founder, or maybe you are a salesperson or a marketing person, to be in a conversation where you're adding value, because it feels much less interruptive. I don't know if you probably had this kind of strange belly feeling when you try to call up someone and you try to get past the receptionist to get a hold of this person you want to call to. I mean, I have done it in the past. It's not so much fun. So let's talk more about how we are going to focus on attracting people instead of annoying them. And also you want to create this long-term value. So instead of this renting attention, you want to create long-term leverage. So interesting, right? Tell me more. It's simple. It's about providing value instead of pushing your way in. I think I've said that already. Being helpful, and being helpful is about creating assets, resources that help people educating themselves on the problem that they might have, the solutions that are available to them in order to solve for this problem, and make them come to a conclusion on their own with, of course, your help. It might sound complex, but if we break it down, it's still complex, but it's going to make much more sense. So you're going to try to find, in this kind of hour that we spend together, we are going to talk about also content mapping. We're going to try to find the content market fit. And what I mean with that is we're going to find, who is your buyer persona? What do they like? What do they care about? What is the type of content that we need in order to get these people moving through their buyer journey stages? So that's a lot of words. I'm going to take it all by steps. So first things first, who are you selling to? Important question. And you might be thinking, Kaythlin, I know this already. We've done this a lot. That's great. If you haven't, or if you want to do an exercise again, I would really urge you to do this. And this is really focused on that buyer persona, right? If you are working in a B2B setting, it's really important to understand your decision-making unit. What do I mean with a decision-making unit? In a B2B purchasing process, there are most of the time multiple people involved in a purchasing decision. And in through that whole kind of journey that is taken up until the moment that someone purchases. And it is important to know who plays which role in that. So why do I think it is important to know that? Because you can influence from a marketing and sales perspective how these people are then moving through that journey most efficiently. And of course, towards your product instead of the competitors' ones. So there is here, HubSpot made an asset or actually tool online. You can go to this link and you can create your own buyer persona if you want. It's a really cool tool. Also, if you have several different people in your team, it's a really fun way to, you know, on a Friday evening, get a beer, go into your own breakout room, make a buyer persona, come back and discuss this with each other, right? Because even though sometimes you think everybody has a similar idea about what that buyer persona should be, you would be surprised at how different people interpreted this information. So it's a nice point of discussion and a good alignment exercise. Also, if I talk about buyer persona, one thing that is important to mention here is I don't care so much about how old this person is or what are per se their demographics, even though that can tell something about this person, about this persona person. It is much more than just that. It's much more than just listing some kind of, you know, demographic assets of this person. It's much more about what does this person intrinsically care about? What do they as a person strive towards to? What are their personal and professional goals? Because someone, even in a B2B setting that goes through a purchasing process, they always make a purchasing process personally. It's always a personal decision making. So it is important that you find kind of the person behind that company, because at the end of the day, they are not selling from a company, they are selling from people, right? They are buying from people. Sorry, that's what I want to say. So your seller needs to be very, you know, very personal to them. But then again, you're also not selling to just a company. You're also selling to a person. I think it is also interesting on the inbound side to give you just an example, right? This buyer persona tool is just an inbound asset of HubSpot. So if you start thinking about how you can create your own assets, this is maybe a very fancy one. And of course, we are a bigger company. We have the resources to make something like this. But if I Google create your buyer persona, nothing with HubSpot or anything, it pops up as the first organic result. Right? Because why do we make something like this? HubSpot has buyer personas as well. I think one of our buyer personas is Marketing Mary. And Marketing Mary, in her job, she probably needs to create at some point buyer personas. So why not help Mary with that right now? So that later on, if she wants to start thinking about buying marketing software, that we can help her through that buying process and maybe end up purchasing HubSpot. So this is really also just an asset from HubSpot in that whole inbound journey of our own clients that we try to target. So just one for in the chat. I haven't seen any comments so far, if I'm correct. So if you want to, you know, start to engage a little bit, I would be super curious to know who of you created their buyer personas already, and if you're really using these buyer personas strategically. So to align your team, to align your assets, to shape that content journey as well. Would be curious to know if you're comfortable sharing. Please do so. Then the step 2, right? So you have your buyer personas. Now we're going to look into the buyer journey. The buyer journey is really important because it's going to be super individual from buyer to buyer, right? So you can imagine something like this. This is just an inventive one that I put out here myself, but you could imagine something like this, right? I've split it up into the 3 stages of the buyer journey. So awareness, consideration, and decision. And here you can see all that touch points, the interactions that my marketing or sales team has with this person that goes through all the way from just the first touch point all the way to purchase. So what I'm trying to point at is, what does this look like for you, right? And if we break that down to give a bit more context, is awareness stage is really the stage where a buyer or potential buyer or prospect becomes aware of a problem that he, she, the company might have. That's just the only thing really going on in this stage. The consideration stage is really about, okay, I know I am aware of this problem. What are all the possible solutions that I could tap into in order to solve this problem? So one of the famous options of the consideration stage is, of course, also not doing anything. So aside from, different competitors that might be direct competitors, but also indirect competitors, doing nothing is also an option. And then that decision-making stage is really the stage where someone outweighs all these decisions and makes a decision for outweighs all the options and makes a decision for either one of these. Here you can find a couple of examples of the assets that we can use, the content, the inbound content assets that you can use in order to get people organically from the one stage to the other. Because what I see startups, not only startups, companies as well, doing a lot is, let's say someone lands on your homepage and you are landing there from maybe like a YouTube video that you created, and you're offering there as the first thing a free trial or like beta access or something like this. People who land from a content piece like a video, like an early stage sort of explanatory video, they are probably very much in the awareness stage. So if you target them with kind of decision-making stage content, that conversion is probably not going to look really great, because people want to go through this organically. They want to take smaller steps, right? They don't want to commit yet to, spending an hour of their time or giving a lot of information about their, their contact details or so on, just because they just became aware of your company. So you want to make this as organic as possible and getting them from the one stage to the other. We are going to into this a little bit more later on, and also what that could then look like. But yeah, here you see a couple of the example assets that you can use. So really, what is this going to look like for you? That's what I urge you to think about. Because when we have this buyer journey for you and for your different buyer personas, we can work on content mapping. And content mapping is really the process of planning the content in kind of a nuanced way in order to address the different stages of the buyer journey and make them go from that awareness to consideration to decision-making stage. Here you have a content mapping template. This is, again, something that is available on Hubspot. I mean, it's not rocket science, so you could also create it yourself in Excel if you wanted to. But it's really addressing, very simple, your first persona or one of your personas, the awareness, consideration, decision stage, and what might indicate whether they are in their awareness stage, the consideration stage, and the decision stage. And I often get the question, Kaythlin, how do I define whether someone is in one stage or the other? And it's a good question, and it depends really on that content that you have in place, right? Whereas, let me go to the next one. Here you have an example of, I think a persona is here, Jenny, the gym owner. And as an awareness stage piece, a beginner's guide to gym equipment, it's really, if you write this content, it's awareness stage content, right? It's tackling someone very early on the buyer stage. It's not talking about your solution specifically. It's educating them upon the bigger problem at large. So if someone interacts them with this content piece, you know that they are in the awareness stage. If from there, they are going to interact a lot with you over email, for example, you're going to send them an email nurture track and they are clicking, they're engaging a lot with that. And of course, you are going to have technology in place in order to monitor this. Or someone is going to your pricing page over and over again, right? Chats maybe with a live chat on that page with your team. That's all like indicators that these people might be moving more towards a decision stage. So this is how you can rank people, how you can score people in which stage they are. So you can then also target them nicely with specific content to move them from the one stage to the other. And this is really like, you're going to create these assets to organically move them. So in the beginning, that might mean that you need to spend quite some time with your whole team. I mean, this is not necessarily something that only the marketing person has to do. It's something that the whole team can contribute to because you all have knowledge and expertise. But yeah, it's an upfront investment and it's not going to create instant traffic, right? Because these assets still need to be distributed somehow, but they will create very long time value for you. So here is this this offer, like this guide that you can download from HubSpot, where I was talking about. If you're too lazy to copy this whole link, you can just Google it. And then actually, I'm going to just dive out of this for a second. What I want to do is give you a bit of an idea what that could look like in real life, right? So I actually have a friend of mine, he started his own company here in Berlin, and I think he's doing a really great job in terms of inbound marketing. And I want to go with you through sort of this buyer journey and content mapping to make it a bit more lively. So this company is, I just opened their LinkedIn page. It's a German, it's an online mortgage advisor. And actually they're specifically focusing on expats. So it is actually I'm the target group. So that's maybe why I resonate with it so much. But they are doing a really interesting job. First of all, they are focusing on expats. So their content is a mix of German and English. So first, that's an important choice to make, of course. The target persona here is probably in their early, mid, late 30s, and wants to or considers to buy a house. So they do a lot with like video content, which I think is great. I love interacting with video content. So they know really well what I, as a potential customer, are inclined to interact with. This is a video, I think it tackles not only, it doesn't only target me really well, but it also tackles another important thing, which is trust for startups. Right, this is actually his dad. They are co-owning the startup, I believe, right now. And his dad used to work for the European Bank or the World Bank. And he's doing here like a very organic video on the important things that you need to know in order to make a decision around your mortgage. And that's nice, right? Because as a startup, you have kind of a trust problem and you need to address that really well with people that are trusted personas or other businesses that have bought from you or other clients that have bought from you to make use cases. So that's a really important one. But let's say, right, I was scrolling on LinkedIn, really in a platform that I interact with, and I click on this video, right? I want to see this video and I watched it, the whole thing. And here I see, oh, there's a way to calculate your free online mortgage recommendation in a couple minutes. That's cool. That's offering value to me without me needing to commit to a lot of things. So let's check that out. They have actually this whole sort of calculator and you end up going to make your own sort of little dashboard. You don't even need to leave anything. You don't need to leave any information. Only if you want to have it sent to you, you can leave your email address. But this is offering me real value, right? I will know how much I'm able to get as a mortgage, approximately, if I fill this out, which is offering me as a potential client a lot of value. but also it's a really great way for them to gather information, because probably what I'm going to do is leave my email address, because this is really great. This is a really great, nice tool. So as I just jumped on and I saw it on LinkedIn, I'm probably still more like in these awareness stages of the buyer journey, right? I'm not ready to go and get a mortgage right now. So these people need to nurture me over time. They need to nurture me with assets so that I go from the awareness to consideration to decision-making stage. You can see that here. I just did a quick filter. I think I also removed a couple of their emails, but they are sending me not only sort of my monthly report, so a refresh of this mortgage that I can get, but also potential properties that I can buy with this actual mortgage that I could get. So this is not spamming. This is really actually sending me valuable information and something that is really interesting to me. So over time, when I might be actually interested in buying, I am inclined to go to them, right? They have offered me value, I trust them, and so they could gain me as a customer. They do also a really good thing with their blog, I think. So if you go on their blog, they really use their blog to not only educate first-time buyers, going much deeper into the buying process. So this is actually much more consideration stage. Interviews very much focus on that trust building, and then an outlook, which I think is also a bit more advanced, which is maybe also kind of decision-making stage content. I hope that this kind of made the whole thing, that buyer journey and content mapping, a little bit more lively for you. So back into the presentation, the assets in place. And I would like to talk to you a little bit about some creative ideas, right, that you can utilize in order to move people from the one stage to the other. We have seen, let me skip a little bit back. You've seen kind of these examples, and these are pretty straightforward. So the white paper, the ebook, the webinars, and so on. So what I want to address in this last part is much more about some creative ideas, and they might not all fit your business model or your buyer persona, but it's just to kind of spark some ideas. And remember this, build your marketing machine just like you build your product. Publish early and publish often. Some things do not work, some things resonate. Try to not, hijack too much resource of your time for months and months without publishing something. It might not be perfect in the beginning, but iterate, right? It's the startup mindset, but don't forget it on the content side either. So here are 7 ideas that I will briefly go through. So the data-driven blog, right? I think I did address this blog that HippoFriend has, and I just love to get this up as an example. Hubspot itself also has it. So we have a blog that is split into different sections, which all address a different buyer persona, right? Because we are selling not only marketing software, but also sales software, services software, CMS software. So that's great, but these are all addressing a different type of persona. So you want to make your blog also a place that people can learn, but that's also natural to them. So don't mix too much. If you have multiple personas, maybe you have a marketplace and you have 2 types of people that you're focusing on. So that's important. And then of course, have your analytics on it, right? What you want to do is move people from one to the other, and you can only do that if you start to understand how they interact with your assets. So have something in place. Google Analytics, HubSpot, tracking code would also help you with something like this to understand what the traffic, what the behavior of these people on your pages are. Then it's not only really blogging about on your own domain, right? Because blogging, we don't only do it, of course, to help people move from the one stage to the other. It's also a way to gain traffic on your page in the first place. SEO. We've all heard of it. And SEO mainly plays on two pillars, right? Relevance and authority. That's the two main pillars that Google is trying to judge with their algorithms for deciding to rank you higher than the other. And relevance is really about the actual content that you put on there, right? Is this relevant to the person searching? So the content needs to be good. But what we see startups doing often is they increase the amount of content they create and publish, but they are not working on their authority piece. And the authority piece is maybe even more important. Not necessarily more, but is very important and is not too often addressed. Is authority points, basically, if I may say so, may call it like that, you only get if you have backlinks. So links from external domains to your domains. That's how Google, if other domains link to your domain, it's considered by Google as an authority score, right? Apparently other websites are referring to yours, which is a good sign on authority. And this is what you also should be thinking about with your blog. How can you use that content that you create there, which is very good quality content, to attract these links from external domains? You can do that through partnerships. You can do that through several different ways. And another way you can do it is through authority blogging, which I think is a really interesting thing, might be interesting if it's something that your buyer persona engages with. Authority blogging is really about blogging on another domain, right? So you're trying to, why is that important? Not only for those backlinks, but also just because on that other domain, you're addressing a different type of audience. You have a different reach than what you have on your own domain. So the platforms that you can look into, and depending on your buyer persona, could be Medium, Quora, Reddit, maybe a little bit more US minded. LinkedIn publishing platforms, so the articles that are shared there. This is really something that a lot of businesses are tapping into. So maybe for your specific industry, there's something else, but try to look into this. The art of social media. Spending valuable resource on the right prospects with the right content. And this is actually more of a provocative thought trigger. I don't know if it's provocative really, but what I see startups doing often is thinking like, okay, we are young, you know, the minimum requirement of a business is to create all the social media profiles that are out there. So we're going to do Twitter, we're going to do LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and so on and so forth. But I would urge you to critically think whether your buyer persona also interacts with these platforms. And if so, with which one of them are they interacting with the most? Because you probably have very limited resources, and then I would really urge you to either do one really well or not to do them at all. And if you have more resources and you're able to do multiple, and that's really the place where your buyers are, go for it. I'm just saying, try to focus and also publish content there that is relevant to your buyers. So that's really, really some tips to share. The video tutorial. Yeah, I think this was already addressed. I think video, especially if you're addressing a generation with whom this resonates really well, it's a really effective way not only to make people aware of your brand, but also to educate. So if you are selling a service or a product that needs a bit more context, this is a really nice place. Also remember that YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world, behind Google then, or like the Google search engine, I should say. It's really, really big, right? So might be a very interesting opportunity also. The chatbot, the chat or the chatbot, so live chat, if you have the capacity within your team to monitor a chat, it could be a really cool way. Why? Because people hanging out on your website are most likely to convert and in that exact moment. I'm not entirely sure about the numbers, but I think if people leave your page, they are already, I don't know, 70% less likely to convert if you're calling them then, and if you're chatting with them at the moment that they are interested, right? Especially people hanging out on your pricing page, you want to get them at that moment, then they are highest likely to convert. So a chatbot is, of course, a way to, with automation, to filter people out, to pre-qualify people, or to answer questions in an automated fashion. And the live chat is also a great way. So if you have a team that is able to, chat with people, it might really be something that is a very good conversational asset to your website. Here we have it. So conversations, establishing a meaningful connection with your site visitors in real time, which in turn convert to hot leads, close more deals, provide better support to your prospects and customers. Right? You really want to have that conversation also in real time. You want to be human and not just a shiny web page with a brand name and cool logo, even though those are also great. The killer use case, as I addressed it before, you might have a bit of a trust problem, especially if you're selling B2B. There are only going to be a handful of businesses that are willing to buy from a startup, right? I think when I was working for Dropbox, there was a famous saying that IT managers would never be fired for buying IBM. And of course they wouldn't, but they would potentially be fired for buying something exotic like Dropbox, right? So this is really important that you start building up that trusted picture of your business. If you have a couple of businesses that are willing to get into business with you, make them a partner of you and really try to utilize this partnership for the benefit of them, but also for the benefit, of course, of yourself, because the majority of businesses will only be able to move or willing to move after they have gotten some comfort of other people taking that first step. So this is, really cool. The value calculator, if it's something that really fits your business model, something to also consider. I think it offers some real value if with your tool you can somehow do a calculation on how much value does it bring, right? There's nothing more compelling than putting dollar signs to your solution, like efficiency saving, energy saving, less overhead, less something that people care about. I had a startup the other day actually that I was helping, and they were selling a tool. This was more complex than what I'm explaining right now, but they were selling a tool so that energy managers could see where they had energy inefficiencies. And we were brainstorming this idea of creating a calculator so that they could easily calculate how much money they would be able to save if they had this tool and they would be able to tap into that data. I think that's a really great way to make your business compelling, or your selling case compelling, let's say. The lead nurture track, this might not necessarily be so much of an asset, but rather a way to, in an automated way, move people from one stage to the other through email. I think email can still be very powerful if you use it the right way. Here you can see a way we use our Hubspot workflows in order to build a lead nurture track. So if someone, subscribes for a webinar, then a week later, we are going to send them an email. When they open this email, yes, we are going to send them another email in 2 weeks, and we are going to invite them for XYZ. So this is how you could make this as complex as you want, but think still from the point of the customer, what makes sense. Probably doesn't make sense sending them every day something, but it does make sense staying on their radar over a longer period of time if they are currently in the awareness stages. Which one are you going to try? Yeah, that's the question, right? So I hope that this sparked a little bit of your creativity. And probably not all of these will fit your business model, but really start thinking about how could you make your inbound marketing strategy as organic and natural towards your buyer persona. A little bit about the foundations, right? So if you want to implement an inbound marketing strategy, think a bit about how you're going to get your systems in place in order to allow you to do this. So unleashing the power of data, of course, I think no-brainer is Google Analytics and you're having your tag set on Google Tag Manager, but also through HubSpot for starters, I want to say HubSpot tracking code, you can get directly the interactions that your visitors have online in your CRM. So here, this is a screenshot if you're not used to using HubSpot. This is an overview of what that looks like on the CRM. So I can see actually my own contact details. This is just on a demo account. But these are all the forms that I've submitted. So if I am a salesperson and I need to reach out to myself, I can actually have a valuable conversation with this person, right? I know what they are interested in because I know what content they interacted with, and I all have that in one place. So that's really where that moment of don't wait too long implementing a CRM system, whether that is HubSpot or not, because these data points you won't be able to get into, or it will require a lot of manual work, and sometimes it's not possible to track that in an Excel sheet or so something like that. So especially if you go into volume, that becomes a problem. But I really, this is one of the examples that I can give you from HubSpot. Scaling through automation. So this is really that piece of workflows, and workflows not only external for nurturing your leads, but also internally, how you might want to perform certain system actions, but also send tasks to people within your organization so that you have a better way of optimizing your processes internally also. So what software are you using? Well, of course, this session was really made possible to you by HubSpot for Entrepreneurs. Startup Lithuania is a HubSpot for Entrepreneurs partner of ours. So what does that actually mean? It's a program that I run, and it really tries to educate entrepreneurs on a lot of things go-to-market strategy. So we do tons of education and tailored training. Not only this, but we have also a lot of other resources that you can tap into. Then we have an integrated platform, of course, the software that you can use on a nice entrepreneur pricing. So the program and the partnership with Startup Lithuania would give you access to a 30% off in the first year and 15% recurring from there. So if that's something that you want to explore further, feel free to go to hubspot.com/entrepreneurs and you find all the information there. Then if you don't have a lot of background on what HubSpot is and you want to know, basically in a nutshell, we are a platform that tries to optimize that whole buyer journey that we were speaking about today. So not only that, converting strangers to prospects, so really that marketing piece, to sales, that interaction with your prospects, to services, managing your install base, and that all on the foundation of a CRM system. So that's kind of the world of HubSpot in a nutshell. We also do office hours, by the way. So if you're interested in joining one of these more product-minded, so this was not so much about the product, right? So if you are interested in that, then you can join our office hours. They are every week on Wednesday mornings. So you can sign up for those. I can actually share with you with Startup Lithuania. I will share the link so that they have a place to send you to if you're interested. How to get started? Well, just a little recap. Understand to whom you're selling, right? Get clarity on your buyer journey. What could that look like for you? Create those valuable assets, these long-term assets that you will benefit from over time to support your buyer journey, to support people going from the one stage to the other. Choose a tech stack that allows you to scale. That could be HubSpot, but it could also be a different solution if that fits your business better. I would really urge you to explore all the different options and test, iterate, and automate, right? And don't automate too fast. I always used to do that, go for the shiny things, but that might create some more work at the end of the day. So automate over time. That's kind of the message here. Well, I'm very excited, even though I've been speaking to my computer for about 50 minutes, but still, I hope that you're also very excited. If you are, feel free to share it with me. And yeah, if you have still any questions, feel free to pop them into the comments section. I will try to take a look later as well if there is anything. And otherwise, I thank you a lot for your attention, for your time today. I wish you a really, good time, even though it's lockdown, but it's going to be Christmas soon. And I hope you're having a good time, even though it's different than any other year. Thanks so much.